by 5/8 glass tube. They were glass. They're now plastic from craft supplies. And so I drill a 64th over hole in these to put the wood in, or to put the tube in. And especially when they're glass, I always make sure that you can use your finger and get it out. Don't glue them in. And if you do it a little too deep, it's easy. You can stuff some paper down there to get them flush on the edge. But make them so you can get them out. You just never know. Somebody can crack them, break them. And I like the 5 inches just because that's what I've stuck with. So everything I do is 5 inches instead of having all different lengths. And those are a smooth tube. So they're a clean bore on the outside. There are no curl overs or anything else. And I keep them flush with the top of the vase, or no more than maybe a 32nd or so down, depending on how. And remember, when you set up your processes, you've got to know which part am I putting, where will I never be able to get back to? It's like the bottom of something. You know, you have to understand, do I do that first or do I do the bottom last? It depends on which end I'm holding it from. Because that, you can finish that up, or how badly will it be when you do it. So it's really understanding and developing a process. That's why you got to make a couple before you really make very many of them. So we'll make this round with the spindle gouge. And this block is about 2 inches. And that's our safe center working. When I'm doing this, I'll do a couple things. I'll put my hand over it, or use a face mask. Especially with hard woods, they do okay. But I want to make a tenon, and I need to keep it big because my chuck capacity won't go down a lot more. So I just use a parting tool and cut a tenon. Maybe 3/8 or less. And I just want to make sure that I'm down below the corners so that my chuck can register on these corners. And I want this curve to come out fairly flat, so that when I round that over, I'm going to stop at the radius because I can't go past that point. In other words, a little short, so I have some leeway when I put it in a chuck. The other thing for this particular shape, the wide point is about 1/3 of the way up. So I'll measure that and mark that, and that'll be my spot that I never touch. And then I'm going to develop 2 curves similar away from that, and one of them then I reverse and come out to the neck. Part of this was the square here, so it's pushing, it's got the most registration. Maybe I didn't cut it square because I see a little bit of a hole at the top, which meant my vertical wall was not perfectly square or even slightly concave the other way. So that's pretty good. You see, even with that in there, it's not perfect, but that should get us there. And then I'm going to use now all I'm really going to do is get a little bit of a radius on the end here. It's not going to be a big deal.
Yeah. You think I could cut that right now?
I'm just going to use the side of this tool to get the radius on the inside. You know, I'm really just scraping it. That'll be pretty good. This is like 320, and that'll work to get it. A little bit in the hole because that'll smooth off where the drill was. Now I'll send the big one around, and you can see this will be black. The tip of that will be black, so you won't see. Now this has hit the ground once, but you can see that I use opaque black and then go into color. So when I'm doing a bowl or anything else, I usually start with opaque black, then I'll hit transparent black as fast as you think you safely can. And I don't want to get too much because I want to use the 2-inch diameter of this piece of wood as best I can. Because for 8 inches long, I want about a 2-inch diameter. That's about a right proportion. The 10-inch I'll go to 2.5 inch, and the 12-inch I'll go to 3 inch. The problem is, finding a 3-inch square piece of wood is often not easy to do. So that's going to be about like so. Oops. It'll bleed through and you'll see it forever. Actually, see, I'm not quite round yet, so I'm okay. Because I'm going to work from that. That red line, it wants to stay there until I'm almost done. Just like doing a sphere. You got to keep that dimension and work your shape from there. In the bottom, I have found that I want about a 1 1/8 inch diameter for the bottom, so it doesn't tip over. So I can see about where that is. And just like with a sphere, stay away from up here. Because once you take that wood off, you've totally defined the shape. So you want to get a nice soft curve going down. No flat spots in it. And I'm taking more away down there. Now I'll go some on the other side, and I want to go about the same distance before I start my reverse. My reverse is going to be about here. And then a gradual out to the end. Because you want it to be, and especially the bottom of that big one, I did a little bit too concave, but you want a pretty long, slender, graceful curve. And by the way, you can do this with, now I can get rid of that guy. Take the same amount all the way down so that I keep that shape that I like. See, I'm turning my head because this thing's going to be vertical. The other thing you can actually do, since we're between centers, I didn't vibrate off like I told Russ, but the wood chips got in it. So, and never be afraid to take it out and look at it. Not you often you can't, because now it's totally different than looking at it horizontally. I can see it now. This needs sharpening. And so I might take the one that I'm trying to match with it, and I'll hold it here and say, you know, do they look pretty close? This just should be shorter. The curve should be fairly similar. I got a little flare at the bottom. I want to not make it straight, but I want to keep a curve in it. You want to stay away from straight lines. No straight lines are not allowed. Only convex surfaces on things that are turned. And then I'm pretty close. So it doesn't take very much. There's some mark. When it's curls, you got all that end grain. Every one of those curls presents end grain to your surface, and so. There's a spot there, so I can go back up to, of course, I sometimes find I start with a fine grain where I want to be, because then the other places show up. If I start with a coarse grain, I'm doing a lot of sanding I don't need to do. So now I can see that spot where that little tool mark was, and I can focus just on that area.
This is the shaper tool.
And then I can work back up.
That's
So
exactly what it's done.
I tend to start finer.
Show us your storage, Greg. How you storing your samples?
These are just few of them. Okay, now we still have to do something with the bottom, because we do like to make the bottoms concave. You can put this in a vacuum chuck. This is a vacuum chuck. This happens to have a PVC pipe on it. Most of mine I make out of wood because I like curved surfaces. This has a piece of wood glued on the end because I like large radiuses. Because then I can just put that in there with the vacuum chuck. I'd probably almost do it without. There it is. Remind me to take it out of my toolbox. And with the vacuum on here, that's going to, and by holding it like that, see how it's now sending? That was 180, this is 220. I'm just going to knock that sharp little corner off. Depending on, now I can take it out of here, and I would do the center by hand. Even with the vacuum, it's still hanging out here, and you don't want to do much cutting. I use either a Dremel with a drum sander, if that tenon is really sticking out there, with a 1/2-inch little drum, I get it down almost flat. And then, that's the one thing I forgot. There's a tool, and it's one of the carbide, fancy carbide tools. And I'll show you a picture of it. They're gold in color. Somebody's come up with the name. And you've got the shaft here, and the top with the curve on it. And you got your carbide stuff up there. And I really like those because I can take that Dremel now, and it's curved the right way. I'm not putting a square surface in there, and so I can get that, and so I can feel it with my fingers so that I don't have any bump in there. And then I can, from there, I can finish sand it with 220 and a couple other things to do it. Now the other way, if you don't have the vacuum chuck, that works very well.
Any blocks?
Blocks.
Something if there's a block with Velcro on it, you would stick sandpaper on it in your chuck?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, the bottom, I'm using my finger. It's much, I can feel the contour of the bottom with my finger for the bottom. Now for the side, I may have used my sander with a twist lock on it, remember, like we made, and run through a couple grits. I see, so I must have almost barely made the diameter.
Yeah, I see that.
There's a dark spot there from the raw wood, so we're just above the diameter. Chet's cookies. Where are we? Okay, let's try the vase. Is there anything? Oh no. Okay. Now, one other thing that, and I saw Matt's goblets, and I've seen other things. And this is one of my finishing tools that it's going to be easy to get down there and plug it in. But you know what the hard part is.
There's a lot of people under the table by 4 o'clock today. So.
Getting up's the hard part. But we'll reach. Yeah. Okay. So I can take this vase . And now I could rotate it. I don't care if it's not perfectly lined up. It doesn't go anywhere. All I want to do, and the nice thing about the Armor All is it's pretty, it's not very viscous. It's runny. It's pretty thin, and so I'll just put it on with a foam brush and make sure that it's smooth all the way down. If there's some bubbles in it, I may stop it and pop the bubbles with the corner of the brush. Or you could take a really light hot air gun and pop the bubbles with that, you know, a long way away. And then,
will alcohol pop the bubbles?
You don't want to put alcohol on it. It's a paint thinner finish. So the bubbles, you want the air to do it, or the corner of the little brush while it still hasn't set up.